My name's Louisa, I'm a language coach, and on my channel I share tips and tricks to help people get unstuck with their language learning, because the natural way we learn languages is through soaking it up with lots of content, through lots of content and contact with native speakers, and it's something that we can do very easily without a lot of effort, and yet our education system tends to send us down a whole rabbit hole of kind of ways of thinking and practicing language that actually kind of go against everything that we do naturally when we're kids. And we can still do as adults, so long as we unlearn the patterns that we picked up either at school or from society, or just psychologically thinking that we're not good at this. Okay, so in this live, I'm going to focus on the subject of the biggest fluency killer. And gosh, this is the first time this is all very new to me. Let's see. So the biggest fluency killer that I'm going to talk about now is something that we talk about in everyday life, in everyday language. It's talked about in psychology, and it's talked about a lot in spiritual and personal growth. So I'm drawing on all three of those today. I'm not going to, this isn't a masterclass. I'm not going to give you an all-encompassing definition. Okay, I'm just going to talk about what it is that holds us back and how we can do it, what we can do to fix it. Okay, so, and by the way, the reason I'm doing this live today is because I actually tried to record a mobile, took my mobile to the forest and I tried to record a walk and talk the other day on this very subject, and I had some tech mishap and it did not work. So it's Friday, I try and upload videos every Friday and I'm running out of time, won't be able to edit, so you get a live instead. And I get the new experience of doing a live, because we learn from new experiences. Ooh, hello, Ron E6. I really need my glasses, don't I? Ron E6Y, hello, good to see you. Oh, thank you for the heart. Good to see you too. So, shall I go on? This is what I tried to talk about in the forest this week on my walk and talk video. So, the biggest fluency killer. It's also a joy killer, an ease killer. It kills our flow, our chances of success in life or in language learning. And if you change this one thing, you'll find so much more ease and flow in life and language learning. So I'm talking about ego, okay? And all the ways it shows up in our life. Now, as I said, there's three ways that we can talk about ego. There's, first of all, the way that I think it's used in common parlance in the English language. Ego is, we say he's got a big ego or she's got a big ego. Or we talk about having an inflated ego. And that's when we're talking about somebody who's really full of themselves and they're a bit arrogant and perhaps they don't listen to other people. That's the most common way we talk about the ego, actually. We use the word ego. And that comes up an awful lot in language learning, doesn't it? If you only have to look at some of the comments in my most successful videos, especially the ones where I'm talking about fluency, that ruffles a lot of feathers, gets a lot of people interested, but it also gets a lot of hatey type comments, lots of criticism, because everyone's got their own idea of what fluency is. I'm not saying my definition is the be all and end all, but my definition of fluency is one that is attainable for everyone. It's not perfection. It's not, you have to sound like a native speaker in your target language forevermore. I mean, that's just not realistic. Even me as a translator, a language geek, having lived in Spain for 24 years, I was even kind of fluent. I had a degree in Spanish before I got here. So, but even I have days where my words come out wrong in Spanish and I sound really British, my accent's rubbish. You know, usually that's not the case. And a lot of times I can be mistaken for a native speaker, and that's probably normally I'm completely comfortable. What I'm saying is fluency is not a be-all and end-all. It's not the be-all and end-all for a start, and it's not something that you attain, and once you've attained it, you're there forever, evermore, because it comes and goes depending on your nerves, depending on, if you're sitting in front of a camera. I can't even talk my native language when I sit in front of the camera sometimes. This is all very new to me. But, so, ego. Let's get back to the theme. Ego. This is something that really trips us up in language learning, because if we're trying to compare ourselves with others the entire time, like, is my language better than yours? Am I fluent? Are you fluent? And that's kind of what was happening in some of the comments on my other videos. There's always going to be someone that's more fluent than you, or if you have this kind of idea of perfection, fluency is perfection, you will be hard on yourself anytime that you come up short, anytime that you make a mistake, anytime that you don't sound like a native speaker, which will happen often, especially in the early times. You're going to feel disheartened and you're going to give up. And we don't want that. That's exactly what we don't want. So the ego is the voice inside of us that takes over and starts to tell us that we're not good at languages, or that we are never going to get fluent, or that it's too difficult, or that today's not the perfect day for me to start because this, that, and the other aren't in place. We have so many versions of these stories that we tell ourselves, don't we? I definitely do it for all of my languages. So even though I'm completely fluent and comfortable in Spanish in pretty much every situation, it does happen to me too. So there was some comments from a Serbian, Latvian guy that spoke, I'm not sure, that spoke Russian and also lived in Ireland. And he was talking about a completely different version of fluency from what I'm talking about. He was talking about fluency as always sounding like a native. So he said that you can only get true fluency as a baby, or as, in the first, 12 years of life, or 7 years, 8 years of life, whatever his definition was. I know what he's saying, but I definitely know people that are exceptions to that rule, absolutely. And it's a bit disheartening to think that it has to be, you can only ever achieve true fluency if you're a child, because that's not accessible for 99.999% of us. So my version is more about flow, finding ease and flow and getting out of our own way. And that's where the ego comes in, because the ego trips us up so many times. It tells us stories, it makes up stories that kind of, catastrophize everything, make things more difficult than they need to be, and stop us from reaching our potential in life or in language learning. So the self-consciousness that we often feel when we're talking, that is the ego just getting right in there and telling us, you shouldn't be saying this, you're waffling. I get that a lot. I feel that a lot when I'm on YouTube videos. Usually I can edit it out, but I can't today, so never mind. The embarrassment we feel when we notice our accent, or we realise that we're not getting our words, we're not putting our words together very fluently, which is a great example there, Louisa. The frustration we feel when we're trying to communicate with a native speaker and they don't understand what we're talking about. All of these things are examples of I've just seen something come up. Add a Q&A sticker. Weird thing you used to believe. No, I'm not even going to try that one. That's for like my second live. This is my first one. So all of these things are completely normal in language learning, and everyone who ever learnt a language has been there at some point, whether they were a child when they felt these things or as adults. We definitely all experience frustration, self-consciousness, embarrassment, shame even, strong negative emotions. These are all the ego, the ways that ego shows up in our lives. And what can we do about this, okay, when our ego gets loud and starts overtaking our kind of main experience, instead of kind of being in our zone of genius where we're in flow and we're, you know, reaching our full potential, we're speaking calmly and effortlessly and trusting that the words will come. We get up in our own head space and the fluency just does not come at all. So I've some points here that we could, that kind of counter, they're the counter, what's the word? They're the opposites of what the ego brings to us, brings to our experience of life and languages. So we've got the inner critic that I've talked about there, that all those negative things that we say to ourselves. The inner critic is a massive part of the ego and how it shows up. And if we can change from our inner voice to a more loving voice, perhaps we access our inner lover or our inner cheerleader or our inner loving voice. That way we can push on through that discomfort and we'll find it a lot easier to show up. Even though it's not perfect, we'll communicate as best as we can and we'll connect with the other people that we're trying to communicate with. Gosh, my words are getting a bit muddled. Okay, rigid thinking, that's the area of the ego as well. Lots of rigid thinking with ego. And what can we do about that? Well, we can look at our stories and instead see alternative stories that we could tell ourselves. So what's the narrative in your head? If you're saying to yourself all the time, I've got no time to learn Spanish, for example. I get a lot of people that are living as an expat in Spain like I am. And so for them, I would say, okay, that story is not helpful. I've no time to learn Spanish. Yes, it may be true. You may feel like it's true, especially if you're a busy mom or dad, working as well, or trying to set up a business. It may very much feel like it's true that you don't have time to study your language. I have this story from my Tamil, which is my next language that I'm trying to learn. I've really only just started it. That's the one for 2026 for me. And it can just become so loud in my head that it stops me from even starting. So instead, I can think of an alternative, more positive, more encouraging thought. For example, I'm finding new ways to learn Tamil and fitting them into my day easily and effortlessly. And that can be, you know, while I'm waiting for the kettle to boil. I've talked about this in lots of other videos. Tiny chunks I can practice in tiny chunks throughout my day, stuff that I've already learned, or learn just one new sentence and practice it over and over again. Because speaking to us, oops, don't touch your microphone. Speaking to ourselves is a really good way to boost our fluency, especially in the early days when you're a bit scared or you don't have many opportunities to speak to other native speakers of your target language. Talk to yourself as much as possible, just going over the sentences you've learned and making up new stuff, describing what you see as you go about your day, describing your emotions, or what you hear, what you feel, all these things. Or talk about a past memory, a future memory, these kind of things. Or change your narrative as often as you can to your target language, and that will help you get find more flow and ease in your language learning, in your language practice. Okay, let's see. So we've talked about the stories that we tell ourselves. Let's make them more positive and see how we can change that narrative in our heads that is keeping us from, it's stopping us from practicing, and it's stopping us from just being relaxed and calm and confident and trusting that the words will come when we speak. Comparison is a really strong way that language learning comes up. The ego comes up in language learning. So, for example, if I've been here, say I've been here for 24 years in Spain, and, you know, my language, I suddenly, no, that's not a great example, hang on. Well, maybe, yeah, okay, so maybe I met somebody tomorrow that's only been here for a year, and they speak fantastic Spanish, and I'm there, you know, having a bad day and my words don't come out. That would be a great example. I would be so hard on myself. I'd be like, oh my goodness, I'm a language geek, I'm a translator, and my Spanish does not sound as native speaking as that other person. It's not helpful. Hello, Briselda Viante. Really nice to see you. Thank you so much, guys, for showing up to my first live. So the only comparisons that are helpful in language learning are comparisons that will help us be our better self. So don't worry about what anyone else is doing. Stay in your own lane. Just focus on you. And the whole reason that my channel is called Heartful Spanish, and I've got these hearts with shining lights, kind of rays of light emanating from the heart. This whole reason is based on a practice that I've found super helpful in beating the ego, okay, and in cutting through all these patterns that we've mostly built up throughout our lives, from childhood. You know, we're told children should be seen and not heard, so you're kind of embarrassed about speaking or sharing your opinions, or maybe we had an experience in school where we were embarrassed, you know, people laughed when we said something, so we just learned to tone it down a bit and just to not make an idiot of ourselves. And sometimes we have to make an idiot of ourselves if we want to grow in life, definitely on YouTube and in language learning as well. We've all made silly mistakes that, you know, made or would make a native giggle, but that's okay. It's all part and part of the language learning experience. So if we can, and the final way that the ego shows up is future tripping and catastrophizing about how terrible it's all going to be if we do X, Y, or Z, or going back to the past and retelling old stories. You know, it's not possible for me because of X, Y, or Z thing that happened in my past. The only moment that matters is now, my friend. We can change our past by focusing on the present moment, living in this heart vibe where, oh, Briselda, no entiendes, pero agradeces mucho mis palabras. Muchas gracias. Un besito y gracias por comentar. So, where was I? If we're more in our hearts, when we're more in our hearts instead of all up in our heads, that's when we quieten the ego and we show up as our best selves. We can move past our limiting beliefs and our bad habits from the past and we can show up as our best version. And really, the other thing about my channel is it's about waking up the innate ability to learn languages that we all have inside of ourselves. So inside of you, you have, inside of us, we have this innate ability to soak up languages effortlessly. And our life is not what we talk about, it's what we do. So it's the action that counts, right? So compare, I'm a writer, that's a label, it's something I've slapped on myself, or I'm a polyglot, versus I write every day, or I practice my languages every day. You know, these are things that are actual actions, and they are actually demonstrable by the way we're showing up in our life. So it's the action that counts, and it's not the empty words or the labels. They don't matter at the end of the day. So waking up, our innate ability is getting past the labels. It's getting to that true you inside that knows that they are capable, that believes in themselves, that talks to themselves kindly, and trusts that there is a way through every difficult situation that they find themselves in. Okay, so our lives are made up of moments. I've got written down here, how we spend our moments is how we spend our life. So I want to have a life where I look back and there's no regrets. So how can I do that? I need to keep checking in with my heart's wisdom. What is it that my heart wants me to know? What is it that I want to do with my life? What is it? How can I best spend my moments so that at the end of my life, when I look back, I can say, okay, I showed up as best I could, and I'm happy about that. So when we live in an awakened state, I'm kind of reluctant to say spiritually awakened, because I might put people off, but awake, I want to be awake to the precious gift that it is to be alive. I want to do that in all of my moments as often as I can until the day I die. And I want that for you too. Let's stop wasting all these hours on our mobiles scrolling and strolling, or that came out wrong, scrolling, just kind of consuming mindlessly. Let's consume in a way that's like, it's leading us to our best self. It's leading us to our goals. It's helping us show up as the person that we want to be, the way we want to show up in the world. And so by doing that, let's check in with our heart's wisdom as we're consuming content on the internet, for example. For me, that's the really obvious way that I go unconscious, and I don't show up as my most awakened self. So Wilfredo is Spanish, living in the UK for 19 years, or similar to me, but the opposite. Still don't sound as native as you wish. Helps to do one-on-one voice coach. Yes. Do you mean like through the platforms? Because yeah, I absolutely agree. That's a great tip. There are so many experts out there helping us these days. In my book, Heartful Spanish, I talk about there's an accent expert who has some great videos on YouTube helping people sort of overcome their native accents. Whatever you're looking to improve with your language, you can always find someone that's an expert on that. For me, it's more about finding what works for you. Because we're all different, we've all got unique situations, we've all got unique problems that we feel that we need to work on. And so basically, if we can so I help people in my one-to-one coaching that I've been doing, in my book here for Spanish learners, but also now I've started doing coaching for people of any language really, because although I'm a Spanish and an English teacher, I don't have to speak the language that you're learning to help you get unstuck with the patterns that have been holding you back. I think that's the main thing, because they're universal. There's some different things to each language and each situation, but I can help you unravel those. And I'm going to be doing a 4 weeks to flow group version. 4 weeks to flow is my one-to-one program that I've been doing for people in the last few years since I started helping people with their fluency. And I'm hopefully in February, we'll see how long it takes me to set this up. I'm going to be helping people with any language in this group coaching program to get unstuck with the patterns that have been holding them back from reaching their full potential in life and in language learning. Because actually the two are intertwined. We can't have one without the other. Language education systems separate language out from life, and that's not the best way to learn. We actually need to, the more life that is in our language learning, the better, and vice versa. Is kind of my language geeky opinion anyway.